Hey, welcome to this radio video, and this is another QSL card collection video. Continuing my big QSL collection. I do have quite a lot of QSLs. Probably not the biggest of all collections in the world, but I'd say I probably have a pretty big one if you look at all the cards I have. So today we'll have actually 4 cards from Ecuador. So this is for HCJB, station that is pretty much disappeared off the air in shortwave, very little transmissions, and moved a lot of their transmitting power to Australia, where they now have HCJB Australia, the Voice of the Great Southland, transmitting religious programs to Asia. So this is for the International Year of Telecommunications, a special card showing their famous, I believe it's Studio 9. I believe this is what they call the Studio 9. Let's check the details on the back here. This is newest control 8. Okay, this one's 8. But they had a lot of the programs I remember coming from Studio 9. So this HCJB, for 11 April 1983, 0230 UTC on 15155. And this is a special card because in 1983, when I started listening, I started basically in 1982, but in 83, it was the International Year of Telecommunications. There were a lot of special programmings, and a lot of stations had special cards for that. So here's one for HCJB had special cards. This is one of their control studios here. Then this is another card. This one is for the, I believe, the Indigenous People of Ecuador year, and they had special cards. This is another very nice card from HCJB, Quito, Ecuador, and this one for 9 July 1984 at 1330 on 15155 kilohertz. They had like an hour in the morning, something like that, and I believe an hour in the morning in English on 15155. In the evening, they had a pretty long transmission to North America. They kind of started somewhere like at 0100 or 0100, and would go on till at least 0300, if not more. A good 2-hour program in the evening. And so, on the other side, here we have Ecuadorian Sketchbook, which was that little team for that year, for a report and for HCJB Quito, Ecuador. And this is for a report 24 June 88, 0330 UTC, 15155 kilohertz. That was one of the main frequencies I listened to very often, and it came in pretty loud and clear to North America. And finally, this is another HCJB card, and this one I think is for children of Ecuador, and they would have a series of cards for children that year. So this is for a card dated 21 June 1992 at 0227 and 21455. That was their USB frequencies. They actually made a lot of tests. HCJB was one of those stations that had lots of technical guys there and ham radio operators, and they would actually do a lot of testing with transmitters, frequencies, powers. On 21455 they had a USB very low power transmission, and that one came in to North America. And talking about USB, every era of shortwave radio has its miracle transmission mode that they try to talk about and say that it's going to save shortwave. Today it's DRM, Digital Radio Mondial. I believe DRM is already dead. Personally, I don't even understand why stations continue in DRM, because I think that's a dead mode. And there's no radios out there, or almost no radios, that can decode it. And the only people that decode DRM are actually people that have these expensive radios and computers, and basically it means that the mode is dead. But back in the 80s, and this station will actually reflects that, the mode that they started talking about was upper sideband. And they were saying, why not take our stations on shortwave that transmit in the AM mode, and if we could just put them in upper sideband, we could transmit to an area of the world and use a lot less power, because upper sideband, you typically can probably put just a quarter of the power that they put in the antenna and still have a very good reception of the station. But the problem with upper sideband is, first of all, music, unless your radio is an extremely well tuned, music sounds strange in upper sideband. The other big problem is that in the 80s, probably most shortwave listeners didn't really dabble or work with single sideband. A lot of radios had only AM mode, and a lot of the 70s radios, and a lot of the problems of the 80s and 70s radios were drifting. Before PLL tuned digital radios came along in the 80s, typical radios were drifting, so you'd have to readjust all the time. So single sideband never really caught on, actually. So as you see, every era had its kind of way to try to save power, because one of the biggest problems with shortwave broadcast is the fact that in AM mode and the huge power they use in the antenna, I would say that probably 80% of a shortwave station cost is towards electricity bills or gas bills because of these huge transmitters. And that's why a lot of stations close. They don't close because it costs too much with the people working at the station, because it's a very small proportion of the cost of running a shortwave radio station. It's really the transmitters that are really costly. And a lot of stations have old transmitters that will need to be replaced soon or needs to be fixed, and these parts that they need are really expensive. So all of that together is, one of the reasons, not totally the reason, but it's one of the reasons why shortwave is actually declining, and it's unfortunate. So I'm gonna stop talking and talking and talking. So these were the 4 cards for HCJB. Hope that you enjoy our videos. Thanks for watching. 73.